Okay, where we're at now is the tank is puttied out. This is a coat of catalyzed spot putty. It's a two-part spot putty. Basically, it's a lot like regular filler, but a lot thinner, and it goes on very thin. You cover your entire surface. Dries very hard. Now we're block sanding out with 150 in all different directions to get that rounded surface, and it really does dry hard. This particular type of spot putty is called icing. It's over there. This stuff. This is what we're using here in this body shop. Mix this with regular hardener, and you end up with something like this. Now, while this was drying off and while other things were going on, I wet sanded both the front and rear fenders. They're all done. And after speaking to a couple of people here in the body shop, the etching primer is really the primer that goes over the metal. And what we're going to do is, after tomorrow, we're going to put a sealer coat over the etching primer. And so this etching primer, this stuff here, is not going to be the final cover for the parts. These are wet sanded down to 400, right? Sponge and 400 grit wet paper. No block, just freehand. Just put it in your hand and work it out, and it comes out. It's very nice and smooth. So tomorrow we'll seal these two parts with a sealer primer, and also, of course, the tank as well. I'm just knocking down some of the hard edges on the putty, and I'll finish this up tomorrow. All right, so that's where we are right now. Still haven't decided what the end result is going to be with the tank, what colors, what designs, anything like that has not come to fruition. So that's going to be a push for me to get that done soon. All right, that's where we're at. We'll continue. This is done. I put another skim coat. I didn't like exactly how this had come out on either side. There was a little reveal. I put another skin coat of putty. You can see the putty through here of filler, and then over the top of that a spot putty that is taken down then with a block of 150. And we're in good shape now. What happens at this point is we prime this with primer, prime the whole thing, a couple of coats, and let it dry for a day, and go from there. Okay, all these parts have been wet sanded those yesterday. They're ready to go for primer, a full primer sealer, and then let that dry up a day, and then we'll get into painting. We've just primed all these pieces with the final sealer primer. This is the first coat, and we're going to get down to, that looks really nice. Yeah, that looks great. So this is the, this is the first coat of the final sealer primer. And we're going to put three or four coats on, and then let it dry a day. Where we're at now is all of these parts have now been wet sanded. The coat primer, 2 or 3 coats of primer we put on yesterday are now all wet sanded with a 400 grit wet sand. And the tank is done, and the front fender is done as well. Last thing we're doing is going over it after the wet sand before what's called the sealer. A sealer is put on just before paint, but we're going over it with a gray, it's like Scotch-Brite material, just kind of knock down any residual, anything that could have gotten through the wet sand. And it's real soft, very smooth now, and ready for the booth, which will be tomorrow sometime. Can't get into the booth today, so have to wait till tomorrow to spray it. But we've got a blue mixed up, a nice blue mixed up for this job. Beautiful color in the sunlight. And looking forward to getting that done tomorrow. All right, what we're doing now is they're hung in the booth. Everything's clean. It's been, all the parts have been degreased using a pre-clean product, wiped down, and now we're just ready to, well, really decide whether we put the sealer primer on or whether we can just actually go to top coat. So that's where we're at right now. Just getting underway. We'll have it painted up in an hour or so. So what we've done now is we've laid the color on. The final coats of color are on. I got about three coats, 4 coats of color. It's pretty deep. And from here we're going to just let it dry out for about a half hour dry out time. And yeah, it's almost there, almost ready to go. For clear, we're going to mix up some urethane clear and get that sprayed over the top. And as you can see, the color is not highly glossy. As a matter of fact, it's not really glossy at all. It's it's a satin finish. But what's going to really make the color now pop out and really shine, that's still wet. It looks glossy there because it's still wet. And it's still wet. And I put it on a little thick up there. And the tank, I put it thick up here because it takes a lot of abuse, the top of the tank. So this is going to dry out a few more minutes, and then we'll start spraying clear over the top of this. Clear will go on pretty thin at first, and then we'll thicken it up as we go. Somewhere between 3 and 4 coats of clear. After which point, then we just let it all sit for, I don't know, 3-4 days, and then buff it out. Okay. We'll continue. That's the end of the job. Basically, the clear coats are on. You can see you got a nice shine to the parts now. Let that clear harden up for 2 or 3 days. After which point we will wet sand, as you can see, there's a little bit of a ripple in the end result. That's called orange peel. You've heard the term before, most likely you've been watching videos, orange peel, and that's what you can see in these parts. And yet a lot of show pieces, you don't see that. And that's because after this clear dries, we wet sand it again down to with a 1500 base wet sand, and then polish the clear. So when we wet sand it, we just gently scuff up the clear material and then buff it down, and it creates that mirror, really bright mirror end result finish. And that's inevitably what we'll have on these parts by the early next week. Alright, that's where we're at. All done, everything's said and done. Okay, these are the parts. They're all done, ready to install. I just put some the nuts and bolts with each of the parts, so I know where they are. But that's the bottom line. Everything's nice, looking great. Paint really came out fantastic. Sure beats what was there. The black with the scratches on the back fender, it was all scratched up. The tank itself had deep scratches through the top, and so it's all done. It's all been wet sanded and buffed out, and it is so nice and smooth. It's good surface. Really came out very nice. So that's that. We'll get those installed in another day or so, just waiting on another part or two. And it's not riding weather yet, so there's no rush. Okay, that's that. We'll continue.